I love that video. Such beautiful springtime sights. And right now we're going to be telling you how you can brighten up your springtime with wildflowers and native plants from the Wildflower Center. I'm joined by Andrea DeLong-Amaya, and It's always a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me.
And we're going to be talking about the sale at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center, which is coming up, a big fall sale, plus lots of different plants that people should be considering in this year of drought.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think a lot of us have lost a lot of plants over the summer, and so now's a great time to start moving into some of the more drought-resistant native plants.
I hear, I can't tell you how much I've been hearing that this year. People have finally had it.
Yeah.
With non-durable plants, and they really want to move to the natives. Let's start off by talking about the fun stuff. The sale's coming up. This is always a big event.
Yeah, and it's going to be October 10th and 11th, the weekend, and our members-only preview sale is the Friday before, and it'll be on the weekend. It'll be 9 to 5 as it's been, and we have a plant list up on our website, so go to wildflower.org and find the species list that will be continuously updating, but that's really great.
Yeah.
Pre-shop.
Well, and some of the things that you have are really rare, and this is going to be one of the only opportunities to buy some of these different plants. So really encourage
that's one of the exciting things about our plant sales. We offer so many local native plants. We have about 300 species that we'll have for sale this time around. So
that's impressive.
All the stuff that you can't find necessarily in other places.
Okay. Well, and one of the things, the fall is a busy time at the Wildflower Center, and traditionally this is when I think of always time to plant the wildflowers, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now through the winter, really, and planting wildflowers from seed is a great time to do that right now, especially since we've had some early fall rains. Hopefully the ground will get moist and we'll continue to have rains. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that.
Right. Let's keep that hope alive.
And we will have seeds for sale at the plant sale as well.
Oh, great, great. So plants and seeds. Now, when it comes to seeding out, that's the easiest way for so many of the wildflowers, but certain preparation work is required, really. I won't say required, but a good idea. Bigger return on your investment if you do this kind of stuff. Let's talk about just site preparation first. Say you have a site that you want to turn over to like a wildflower meadow. What's the first step?
Well, if there's any existing vegetation, you want to make sure you can clear it out, or at least, save particular things, but have a lot of open soil, because that's probably the most important thing to do with wildflower seeding. Is you need to have good soil to seed contact.
So open spaces where you see the ground exposed.
Yeah, and mostly you want to do it in a sunny spot, but there are some species that actually will tolerate some shade. Actually, this is a tropical sage that's a good shade-tolerant plant. So there are a few things that you can do for a shady meadow too, but you have the biggest selection of sunny stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So again, clear it out a little bit, expose the soil, and some of the seeds. We hear this phrase "scarifying," and particularly with the bluebonnets. Sometimes it helps to do a little preparation on the seed themselves, right? Yeah,
you could. If you've never had bluebonnets in a patch before and you're doing them to start out with fresh, if you scarify them, you'll have more germination the first year. Now, if you don't scarify them, some of the seeds won't germinate the first year, but over the time, their seed coats will wear off and you'll have them come up years later. So it just depends on, if you want a lot the first year or, wait until they come up the next year. And then ideally, you'll let them reseed, let them ripen before you cut them, and they'll fall back onto the ground, and you'll have a good seed bank coming up.
I don't even worry about it. With bluebonnets, I just toss them out, and it's like, okay, that seed will last for 20 years. That's okay.
That's right.
And if I'm really, really convinced I want a big show of bluebonnets, I just throw out more seed.
Right. I think that's the easiest way. Yeah. But if you do want to scarify them, one of the ways we do it, and this sounds so bizarre that you would do this to a plant, take the seeds and we freeze them, and then we take them like overnight, and then take them out and pour boiling water over them and let them soak. And they'll swell up, and you know that they're absorbing that water, and then you can put the seeds out. Yeah. Another thing that a lot of people have heard about is needing to get some sort of inoculation of them. And I don't know if there's any inoculant that's commercially available, but what we've done is if we're putting bluebonnets into a space that have never had them before, we mix in a little bit of soil that was growing them, and that gives you that microflora.
Okay, so the little microbes that are really help with the germination of the seeds. Yeah. Okay. One other thing about seeding is sometimes you get these seeds that are so tiny. I mean, they look like
little
smaller
dust.
than, exactly, dust is a good way to describe it. How do you seed that out efficiently? What's a good strategy for seeding that out?
Yeah, mixing it with some kind of sand or some kind of medium that can dilute it, and then you can more easily spread that out more evenly. Sand is kind of nice because you can see it, but it can be really anything that you'd want to put on your ground.
Yeah.
And then you don't, if the seeds are that small, you also don't want to bury them.
Right, right. Yeah, that's a very good point. On a lot of these, you don't really bury them all. You just kind of toss them out there.
Maybe rake them in a little bit.
I used to always wait until this time of year, and if I'd see a storm front approaching where they were promising, absolutely promising rain, that's when I would go out and do it.
Perfect. That would be perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the plants that are going to be available at the sale, because I know people are going to want to pick up a lot of these, and some of these you're not going to want to seed, like this, like this one right here.
Yeah.
And this is, I love the Havardiana agave. This is, whenever I think of Big Bend, I think of this plant.
That's what you see mostly there, and they're spectacular.
Yeah.
And they do very well for us here in Central Texas, as long as you give them really good drainage. That's the main thing. And if you don't want to irrigate at all, they're fine with that.
This is an agave, obviously, and this one will get pretty big, really, 4 to 5 feet tall, right?
Yeah, the flower stalks can get really tall.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's a rare occurrence, but it will happen from time to time.
Actually, I think they can even get like 20 feet tall when the flower stalks. Yeah.
So you can see well-armed Havardiana agave, and you know, again, not something you typically see a lot in the stores. So this is going to be an opportunity for people to pick up a plant that is really unusual. It's a classic Texas plant, though, and I love the coloration on this. The pale color with the dark teeth. Really, really beautiful. Now, another one that is going to be available, this is, I think, maybe my all-time favorite native flower, the claret cup cactus. And this, I'm going to take this little guy out of here so that people can see the form. The forms of the plants are super cool.
Yeah.
But the bloom on this one is spectacular.
Yeah, a lot of the cacti are very showy when they're blooming, and this is a spectacular, rich, bright orange. And you know, the flowers are, I don't know, 3 to 4 inches in diameter. And a mature plant will have lots of flowers. They're mostly spring bloomers, but they are spectacular. You
may have noticed, but I like the color orange.
Orange.
And not just because of this either, but anyway, great little plant, claret cup cactus, and I hope people will look for that. Now, here's a plant I have never gardened with, but you know, once you see this flower close up, it's unmistakable that it's a plumbago.
Right.
And this is just, we call this white plumbago. Is that the common name for it?
White plumbago, yeah.
Okay.
Plumbago scandens, because there are other white plumbagos that are different.
Okay, and this is a native.
Yeah, it's native to South Texas, and we have had really great luck growing it. It's a little slow to get established, but what's really cool about them are these beautiful white flowers really all summer long. And then the new foliage in the spring, and then the foliage in the fall when it starts getting cold, it turns bright burgundy. So you have the white flowers with the burgundy foliage, and that is really spectacular.
Yeah, that's a great combo.
And then it just makes a low moundy plant about 2 to 3 feet tall and spreads.
Well, you know, the plumbagos that I'm aware of are plants that are pretty well adapted to shade. Now, is this one that is going to grow in the shade for us?
It'll take, considerable shade. It'll probably have a little better red coloring on the foliage and more sun, but it'll bloom fine in some shade.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is, again, the little native Plumbago scandens.
That's right.
White plumbago by another name, and will be available at the sale. And we have just a little baby guy here, but I think we have some images of the mature plant. And you call this heartleaf hibiscus, right?
Yeah, heartleaf hibiscus. Also, I've heard it called tulipan del monte, the tulip of the mountains, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's a hibiscus family plant.
Obviously a hibiscus family plant.
Nice, with soft, velvety leaves.
Yeah.
And then the flowers are also brilliant, saturated red. It's really a scarlet flower. And also for some of these things that we don't have photographs of, I encourage people to look at our website, and we have a whole image gallery and a plant database where you can find out all sorts of information about bloom period, color, how big the plant gets.
Yeah, where to plant it, all of that stuff. Yeah, no, that's one of the real great benefits of the Wildflower Center.
And that's another one that will tolerate some shade too.
Yeah, and this is, we have a little shade grouping here, in fact, because the next plant is what you were pointing out earlier, which is the little Salvia coccinea, or tropical sage. Again, bright red color, great hummingbird plant.
Yeah.
I love the little flowers on this, and this is one that, this was actually one of the very first native plants I ever seeded out, just throwing out seed.
It's an easy one, which is nice. I mean, it's, you know, if you're a new gardener, seeding them out or planting them from pots, either way, they're pretty good. They'll reseed on their own over time.
Quite aggressively.
Yeah, pretty freely. But they're also very shade tolerant, and they have a really long bloom period too, pretty much spring through the frost.
Right.
You'll sometimes see them in white. You can find them in white or pink, but the standard is the red. Yeah. And they make a nice shrubby plant about usually 3 to 4 feet tall. And what I like to do is periodically trim them back so they stay a little bushier and more compact.
Yeah, and they take very well to that and maintain a nice form. If you just, very light touch, once they've kind of gone through that first blush of bloom, just pinch them back a little bit.
I've seen people be pretty brutal and cut them pretty much to the ground even sometimes. Yeah. You don't want to go further than the lowest leaves, but the tops are good. They come out really bushy.
I remember seeing pictures of lawns of this mode, which is actually quite spectacular. If you let them go at just the right moment, they all bloom.
Very pretty plant.
Now this is the bluebell, the eustoma. And this is the Texas bluebell, and this is one that you're going to have at this
We have
sale.
a lot of them in these 4-inch pots, which is a perfect size to try them. This is one that has the dust-sized seeds, so planting them from seed can be expensive, and it's kind of hard to get them going. But if you can start with a plant, that's often a good way to go.
Now, the leaf on this one is smooth and gray, which tells me that this is not for the shade.
No, right. It's definitely a full sun plant.
Yeah, this is obviously an adaptation for
and they're sort of succulent.
Them. Yeah.
They're really succulent leaves too. And that's one that needs full sun, and they bloom in the middle of summer when a lot of other things aren't blooming, with a very large purple flower. They're very stunning.
Okay, real showy little plants. And, you know, there's going to be a lot of availability of all sorts of cool things. Real briefly, I just want to mention that you brought one of the, you're still branding them with the couperias, the little rain lily next to you. They'll be available. This has been a spectacular year for those. I know that people will love being able to purchase some of those. Real briefly, again, very briefly, the sale's coming up on?
Yes, October 10th and 11th, and we'll be open from 9 to 5 at the Wildflower Center. And check our website for more details at wildflower.org.
Okay, great, Andrea. Thank you, as always, for coming on. I know that people are going to be very anxious to get out there and get their goodies.
Me too. I'm ready for fall planting myself.
Okay, thanks so much. Coming up
you.
next, it's our county extension agent here. Thanks.